welcome into Beyond the Mark. Again, Anita Marks, you see me all over ESPN talking sports, but it's a special time. It's an interesting time. It's a unique time, and it is the P. Diddy trial. And I am working with one of my very dear friends who we went to college together at University of South Florida. Go Bulls, Nev! And that is, of course, Nevin Shapiro. Nevin, how you doing? A week in the books now with the Diddy trial. What are your thoughts?
I'm worn out, Anita. I'm worn out. We're just getting started, though. I told you when we got started on this is a marathon. There is nothing like a quick hit situation. And I think we're just getting started. I mean, opening statements, strong. Government came out, did what they had to do. They put out their star witness, and the defense did what they do. And this is going to be some situation. Let me tell you.
Well, this is episode 4. Each and every episode, we have a very special guest, whether it's an attorney. We've got some law enforcement, FBI agents who are going to be joining us down the road. We're producing 1 to 2 episodes each week. And this is our Friday episode, of course, recapping the week that was. And it was all about Cassie Ventura, who, of course, is victim number 1 for the prosecution, her testimony, the cross-exam, the redirect, all of it. And joining us is Judith Germano, who, by the way, you and Judy go back, very interesting, right? She was the chief of economic crimes, handling your case in your investigation for the prosecution. So let's welcome her in. Judy, really appreciate your time in joining Nevin and I. Wow, talk about life coming full circle, right?
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to get to chat with you both. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad we're meeting on these circumstances.
Indeed.
About somebody else's problems.
There you go. Yeah. All right. Well, let's dive right into it, right? Because this week was all about Cassie and her testimony. First things first, how do you feel being on that side, right? A prosecuting attorney. How do you feel that the prosecution did in regard to their line of questioning, her testimony, and how they handled it to help them prove their case?
I think both sides are doing a terrific job. This is an incredibly difficult case. There are salacious facts, but tricky legal issues, and they have to focus on proving the elements of the case. And I think that the prosecution has done a really good job with the case so far, as has the defense in terms of presenting why there shouldn't be a conviction. And going through with the witness like Cassie, I think one of the important things that the prosecution did was front some of the issues that did come up on cross-examination to help take the sting out of it. And so when they did hear it on cross, it wasn't the first time the jurors were hearing it, but at the same time, the defense has done a terrific job. So it's an interesting case to follow for sure.
One of the biggest questions, and each and every day, it's being reported, what her testimony is, and then the recap and the analysis or the debate is, if she is, and we're anticipating her to be the government's strongest witness / victim, is her testimony supporting the crimes or backing the crimes that the federal government is charging him with? And that's really a big question, because there's many analysts out there who feel that the answer is no.
And that's what makes the case hard. The defense has taken the position of, yes, he's violent. He's a bad person with a different kind of sex life and has done some bad things in his history, but that doesn't make it a federal case. They've really focused on the fact that it's not charged as a domestic violence case. And the prosecution has the burden of showing the elements of the racketeering charges and the other charges that they've brought. And I do think, to answer your question, that Cassie's testimony has helped the prosecution, at least from what we're reading in the readouts from court, because it was about the threats, the violence, the drugs, the beatings, the continued abuse that showed it wasn't just a domestic violence situation, but that he was a predator with levels of intimidation and threats, and other people who helped him in terms of bringing in other people for with drugs and other acts. And I think that today, hearing about the car bombing was certainly very significant and goes more toward a racketeering type of offense and conduct with the arson than some of the other evidence that we've heard so far.
Judy, let me ask you a question. So, you know, it's not even like as a man just thinking this is so despicable. Like his actions have been atrocious as a human being, right? But then you get down to the real burden of proof, and like this is a really really difficult case. In your opinion, why was this the angle for the feds to go with these type of charges? I think this is, and it's just my opinion. I think Diddy is a despicable human being for everything we've heard and that's seen that's come out of testimony. But this case almost seems to me to be impossible to show.
It's a great, it's a great question, Nevin, in terms of why have they charged what they've charged? Were there other uh, allegations that they could have launched or advanced? And I've asked that same question, not having the benefit of the insides of the evidence room, let's say. We're seeing how it plays out in the courtroom. When I was a prosecutor doing some high profile cases, I actually got very good advice from Governor Chris Christie, who was U.S. attorney at the time. And right before a big case, he said, Judy, don't believe what you're reading in the paper. If you believe it, we might be losing almost every case. So it depends. No offense, as we're on a show talking about the case, but
Yeah.
what happens in the courtroom and how it rolls out before the jury and the pieces of evidence that the jury sees is different sometimes than us outside. And I know Kathy Fleming made that point on your show about reading the papers sometimes and saying, wait, were they in the same trial or same
Right.
courtroom that I was in? And that's happened to me, um, as a prosecutor as well as a defense attorney. And sometimes as a defense attorney, it's easier to try to contact the press with regard to mistakes, but we don't have the full picture. And I
Right.
think that there's more to be seen. And what I'm really interested in seeing is what happens with the next witnesses, because having just Cassie, it makes sense that she was the lead witness for this to tell the story and put the facts out. But to the extent that they are charging more than a domestic violence case, and that it is the sex trafficking and RICO and those charges, then we need to hear from more witnesses.
Right. Yeah. I'm in agreement with you. She set the tone for sure. And I think for like she laid out like what's about to follow just in the harshest way. And one thing you did say that I do want to comment on, and the description that the former governor gave to you, that's spot on because I'm reading the feeds, and I'm thinking, is he going down? No, he's not. He's coming back, and it's a give and take, and that's what I had said, Anita, in our few shows. This is an ebb and flow. First punch, next punch. It's just gonna be counter punches back and forth, and that's why this is such a difficult and interesting and intriguing case for sure. Yeah.
There
So,
was
so I'm sorry. Go ahead, Judy.
I was just going to say there was a certain trial. It was one of, I thought as a prosecutor, a terrific trial day, document after document. And one of the reports was, oh, what a boring day. And I thought this was so important, but it took some more days and some more witnesses to put the evidentiary wall, together and in place. So I don't feel comfortable for either side prejudging. I'll just say, there are terrific attorneys on both sides who have worked incredibly hard for the prosecution and defense, and it's still rolling out. So there's a lot more to see.
Yeah, Anita, let me make one point. So when I was reading that the Diddy team, like the prosecution filed something about them trying to get a mistrial by staggering, and that's just another tactic. Like this is tactical warfare. These are and good on the government's part to spot it, to eliminate it, and put it out there. The thought of Diddy's guys just bleeding her about the civil cases, which has nothing to do with the reason why they're there, even though there's some semblance of relevance to that situation.
So I want to focus on what the Diddy's defense team did today. And well, actually, it started the cross examination started Thursday, and it went into today. And by the way, the judge made it clear he wanted Cassie's uh, um, cross as well as any redirects, and we'll get into that in just a second, done by today because she is pregnant, and there's the possibility that she very well could. I think she's due over the weekend, so there's that. But I more importantly want to talk about the strategy. And their strategy was to prove that she was a willing participant in the freak offs, and they showed and shared with the court and the jury text messages. And I just want to read an exchange to you, okay? And this happened on April 19th of 2010. Cassie, I want to talk to you about something tomorrow. Gonna go to sleep. Love you. Diddy, is it gonna stress me out? What is it about? Cassie, freak off. It can wait. It's not a big deal. Diddy, now you don't want to do it anymore? Oh, I already know. You're so predictable. Cassie, really? Okay, since that's definitely what it is, I'll leave it at that then, since I'm so predictable. Have a good night. Diddy, whatever, baby. I'm not going to play no games with you. You ain't going to keep up shutting me down. Cassie, I'm not shutting you down. I never do. If anything, it's always the other way around. I wasn't going to say I didn't want to do it anymore. So this is just a snippet of many that the defense team shared in court. And so, Judy, I want to come back to you. How damaging are these text messages that the jury is sitting there and again, as Nevin said, horrific acts, alleged what Diddy did to her, horrific, horrible human being, and yet the defense team is sharing these text messages that are proving that she was a willing participant, and going to the extent of like helping orchestrate these. How damaging are those text messages, Judy?
I mean, the defense is doing a great job, but how damaging in the scope of all of the other evidence, we don't know yet. It's a complicated relationship between the two of them. It's obviously an abusive, predatory relationship. He is a predator. He used violence. He used threats, intimidation. In the context of that, her backtracking on whether or not she wants to be involved in the sex parties is in context, right? That maybe that she was afraid to tell him she didn't want to do it anymore. But those are pieces that the prosecution is going to have to put together. So for the defense to show she's a willing participant and she stayed with him for a significant amount of time is certainly going to help their case. But the jury can weigh that in the context also of the other abuse and the other witnesses, the other people who were involved, the other you know, examples that is still to come with regard to kidnapping and lies and drugs and intimidation. And I do think the car bombing is tremendous. That shows what happens if you say you don't want to be his partner anymore. And it's I think a scary overt act that brings it outside the relationship between just the two of them.
Another thing the defense team is doing is portraying her as a violent person. Text messages about a fight that she got into with a woman at her brother's birthday party, where it was a text message saying that she wanted to kill her. Also, they played a recording in the courtroom, a conversation between her and a man who apparently had some of the videos, the sex videos, and she threatened to kill him. On top of that, the defense team as well pointing out that she used drugs often outside of Combs. So all of that was that they were trying to prove and share in court. And then what really got me, and I'd love for both of you to comment on this, and this kind of took me back towards the end of the cross examination. The defense said, "Well, you hate Diddy, don't you? You hate him." And her response was, "No, I don't hate him. I was in love with him. I don't hate him." I just out of help or hurt the prosecution or the defense, like in regards to that, I would imagine that the jury's sitting back and going, he did all these horrible things to you, but you don't hate him. Judy, how do you process that?
So the first part, the defense has to walk a careful line of not going too far to attack someone who's been sexually abused, assaulted, and suggest, oh, because she also showed anger or made threats to people, that somehow makes what happened okay or makes it consensual. And if they go too far with that, I think they lose. So they were strategic in walking it up to a point, but I don't find that line of evidence or argument especially helpful to the defense. Now, to the point of, do you hate him? No, I don't. I thought that was very interesting, and you had to have that question. But had she said, yes, I hate him, he's ruined my life, well, then that launches into a whole line of questioning about how this is just revenge and her $20 million civil payout wasn't enough, and now she wants to destroy him because she hates him. So answering yes was not going to be a helpful answer in that context. It also, answering no, plays into the narrative that we've heard that it was a complicated relationship. There was back and forth between them. And that's not unusual when somebody is in an abusive, violent relationship. But then, and she said this, but then he'd say he loved me. And obviously he's very charming and very charismatic. And look at how many people love and support him. And here's someone who was close to him and under his thumb through threats, fear, intimidation, but also some kind of emotional attachment. So saying, no, I don't hate him, I'd say, I mean, what's the right answer is the truth, always. That's it. But the fact that that was the answer, I think that is a helpful answer under the
Yeah.
context of this case.
Yeah, I would, Anita, I would agree, just almost ditto to what you just said. Like, they can't take the defense cannot take shots out of at someone who's a victim of such significant abuse. It would be appalling. They'd turn off the jury in a second. They'd flip on them. It wouldn't even matter if they were accurate. They'd flip on them. That's one. To her response, maybe she's just reached a point, and it would seem like it's revenge and bitterness and all that else, and it almost that had she said she hates him, I think that does bode well for the defense. I think she gave the best answer that the prosecution could have hoped for. She handled it in a class manner, I guess. Trying to say, she answered it the right way. I guess if there is a right way to answer that. This is just going to be a give and take case. It's going to go up, it's going to go down, but I do think the point Judy made is huge. While something may not seem like important, they could be setting up the stage, prosecution, for a latter point, just to establish a specific territory on Diddy. And with getting into the car bomb and this and that, they're trying to show that this is a guy that if you don't comply, this is what you're walking into. Hence the RICO and what you have.
Judy, again, because the side of the prosecution is your specialty. I was really curious whether or not the prosecution was going to redirect or not, and sure enough, they did. And apparently, and again, this is all what's being reported from the trial, is that the redirect was more to do a deeper dive into the state of mind that Cassie was in while she was texting these things to Diddy. What are your thoughts on the redirect?
Absolutely the right call and well handled. I mean, we have to note this is a Friday afternoon. This is a compelling witness in a very significant, difficult case. So, what's the last thing the jury is going to hear on this, Friday afternoon of this very important witness? And the danger of a redirect is it could reopen a lot of issues to then have more cross examination, which you don't want to do, especially, as the week and trial day is drawing to a close. But I think it was really important questioning, and done in a way not of, oh my gosh, what a devastating cross, how do I fix this? But rather, let me help clarify. You were asked some questions, and what were you thinking? Completely legitimate, very appropriate, and good strategy. I think that was the right way to handle the questioning, and with a redirect of that nature.
In reference to what Judy just said, state of mind. Let me explain something to you. And I had shared this with you on our very first session that we did. The state of mind is, there's a big difference. Like when you Puffy's, if he was fighting this case from home, showing up to court every day, his state of mind is way different than where he sits right now in Brooklyn, MDC. There's a different stranglehold on his esophagus than what it, state of mind. Who is he today as opposed to who would he be if he was at home coming to court every day? State of mind. You could find yourself in two different states. She was obviously a victim, and you're a very desperate person in that situation.
So let's look forward, right? So court adjourned. It's going to be the weekend. Give us a look behind the curtain, Judy. What happens now with both teams? Like, how do they regroup? Do they recap what happened? Do they pivot? Like, what's going to happen over the weekend with both the prosecution and the defense?
Well, as much as this week was shocking for people who are hearing the facts unfold for the first time, I don't know for a fact, but I don't know that any of this was a surprise to either the prosecution or the defense in terms of expecting what she would say and what evidence would come out. So I don't expect I didn't see any need to pivot or a shock in that respect. But obviously, it'll be a long, hard weekend of work. Usually what happens is, for a case of this magnitude, people would get daily transcripts and review things that came up, address who else they need to respond, as witnesses, if there need to be adjustments to upcoming witnesses. But what I'm interested in, I think, is the next victim testimony, because that's very important to take this outside of what the defense has alleged domestic abuse relationship. And I think the prosecution already has laid seeds to show that this was a much bigger enterprise that the defense will have to rebut. But by showing more than one victim and more people involved in carrying out the goals of this sex trafficking, prostitution endeavor, to prove the charges as, in the indictment, I think is really important.
Well, just opens up the door to preview what is coming next week. And victim number 2 was revealed yesterday. Don Richard, singer in the R&B group Danity Kane, familiar to viewers, MTV reality show Making the Band, trio called Diddy, Dirty Money. She's accusing Diddy of misconduct, threatening her, experiencing rages from him while he oversaw her career, allegedly ordered her to strip down to her underwear, smacked her a few times, threw objects, laptops, saluted her, and at times failed to pay her for work. And then victim number 4, Mia, apparently is his former personal assistant who worked for Combs for years. And then allegedly Diddy forced himself on her as well. So that's victim number 2 and victim number 3. Again, it's been widely reported victim number 2 and victim number 4. It's been widely reported that victim number 3 they can't find, is MIA, is missing, didn't want to testify in the first place. So your thoughts in regard to victim 2, victim 4, and also I'm just curious to get your thoughts as well. Is, have you ever been in a situation where you've got a victim, a witness, somebody you want to testify that didn't want to and then just went MIA on you?
I'll take that last part first. I mean, most witnesses don't want to testify. If someone is so enthusiastic to testify, you wonder if they have a different motive. You just want witnesses who are going to agree to, as a prosecutor, you want witnesses who are going to agree to tell the truth and tell what happened, and the facts are the facts. If you have witnesses who are so enthusiastic and do hate somebody and want to testify for revenge and could embellish, that could hurt the prosecution and cause for either a mistrial or an overturned verdict, or and you don't want to support perjury or any false statements. So it's not unusual to have witnesses who really don't want to be there. It's a very uncomfortable seat. Obviously, the defense seat is the worst seat in court, but being a witness on the stand is the second worst seat, I'd say. So it's interesting. I don't know if they could issue a subpoena for victim number 3 to come testify. I don't know the circumstances or what efforts there are to try to find that person and how much they may need the person to come in. But as for the testimony anticipated of victims number 2 and 4, I think that will be very telling, because this now goes further into the story of why this was an enterprise, and that it's very important that the prosecution is not framing its case, or not seen to be framing its case, as a moral judgment on this person's behavior or sexual preferences. It's what is the law and what can a person do and can't a person do. And to the extent that he was using threats and violence and drugs and intimidation and bringing prostitutes across state lines to create this enterprise, or to operate this enterprise that was deemed as racketeering, that's going to be important for the case. So at the end of the day, I don't know what the closing arguments will be, but as a prosecutor, you may say, whether or not you agree or disagree with this person's moral choices, that's not why we're here. We're here because he broke the law in these ways. And then they'll outline what happened with not one victim, but multiple victims, which brings it outside of the domestic violence context of the defense case. And that will make a harder burden for the defense to carry and overcome.
They're establishing relevant conduct is what the government is doing. They're showing this is a pattern of this guy that's extending beyond his own personal relationship. And yes, he is despicable. But if they show that this is who this guy is and his business affairs and this and that, they're painting a very, very bad picture for this guy that the jury's going to have a hard time ignoring, that it's just not an ex-girlfriend who he was beating up, but he took this out on employees and whoever else is next up and is going to show up. And I certainly don't think that I think there's going to be some names that come out that we haven't heard yet. And I've always stood on that point.
Judy, any final thoughts before we let you go? Is again, the week that was, next week, again, victim 2, victim 4 expected to take the stand. What are your thoughts as we head into the weekend?
I think it'll remain or continue to be an incredibly interesting case. I think it's a really important case of when does someone who acts with such impunity, with violence, drugs, and aberrant behavior cross the line into what constitutes a criminal enterprise? That's really the question that this case will turn upon, I believe. I knew one of the defense attorneys, Mark Agnifilo, and we were both at the U.S. Attorney's Office together. He's a tremendous prosecutor. He has others on his team who are really terrific, skilled prosecutors in and out of the courtroom, or defense attorneys, I should say. And the prosecution has a super talented bench as well. So it's an interesting case. It's a difficult case, and they're really good attorneys on both sides battling it out. So we'll see what happens.
Nevin, any final thoughts? Any final question for Judy?
No, thank you so much for joining us. Your insight's incredible. It really, you have to really go beyond the mark and bring in the people that really know this stuff. This is a different game, this federal law. And if you've never been through it, I wish I hadn't been. The elements and where the twists and turns and what you think is right but isn't right. This is going to be an interesting battle. And thank you, Judy. You're great.
Yeah, Judy, thank you.
Thank you both so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Really do appreciate it. And we thank everybody, of course, for tuning in to our podcast, our show, Beyond the Mark, episode 4. Again, next week, the jury, the trial, it continues. And again, victim 2, victim 4, we will be here with you for it to break it down, recap, and bring in some of the best guests out there, legal experts, law enforcement, to really recap and give you some really solid analysis. At the end of the day, the really the big point about this show is to make you wiser when you get done watching. So hopefully you're enjoying it. Make sure you subscribe, follow, comment. We do read your comments. We love when you comment, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.